how to build a business with zero social media. In this episode, I'm going to share with you a conversation that I had at a recent roadshow where someone had asked me, hey, Scott, if you were to move to our community, it was in Halifax, and you had to start from scratch and you knew nobody, what would you do to build your business? Well, my first answer to this is actually a podcast I already did called How to Become the Most Famous Mortgage Broker in Your Community. If you click on the show notes, you can go listen to it. But if you wanted, he wanted to make it a little harder on me and said, what if you couldn't do that? So I can't use any social media or any content marketing in order to grow my business. What would I do? And I said, I have a plan. We've actually helped people do this before. Hey, I'm Scott. I'm going to tell you about how I did that and how you can do that. And also I'm going to share with you how this plan that we put together for other people, how we've actually improved it since the original version of this. Before I do that, hey, I'm Scott Beckford, the founder of I Love Mortgage Brokering and Bricks Mortgage. Prior to being in this, I've been in the mortgage business for 18 years. And the last 8 years, I spent coaching mortgage brokers, helping them go from 100K and up. And 3 years ago, we started Bricks, which has been an amazing journey, working with some fantastic agents and helping them not only level up their business, but level up their life. So let's jump into this episode. So the first thing that I would do, and actually before I do, I'm going to tell you a quick story to give you some context on this. So I was coaching a client based out of, I want to say Georgia. I can't remember. I know where he moved. He moved to South Carolina. He was a loan officer, and he had said to me, hey, Scott, I'm moving to this new town. I don't know anybody, like no one. And we helped him in a very short period of time, not only get connected in his town, but he actually was able to get an in-house at a real estate office. And the way we did that is, and just so you guys are aware, if you're for my Canadian listeners, in the US, often you don't actually even own the clients. So the clients are owned by the mortgage company. And so when you leave, you can't reach out to them at all. Like there's no contact the way that it's completely separate. Whereas in the mortgage business in Canada, often, not always, you actually get to keep some of your clients. So you can still kind of work with them if you're licensed in both places. That was not an option for him. And so when I said, what do you have for options? He said, I know no one. I don't know a soul. And so I think he had moved because his wife got transferred. And so they went together. And then, so he told me that, so the first thing I would tell you to do, and then we were able to show him not only how to connect to find good realtor partners, how to get intel on those realtor partners so that he could get meetings, and then how to have a meeting that actually shows value and gets them to want to work with you. But so the way that he started, which is the way that I would tell you to do this, or I would do it if you dropped me in a town and said, tied my hands behind my back and said, Scott, no social, no content, you can't leverage any of that. This is what I would do. And so he went to this town, and he went to in South Carolina, and his kid was in tennis, like competitive tennis. And so, of course, the parents sit there and they watch. They watch the kids play tennis, they cheer them on. And so his network, initially anyway, was just these activities his kids were in. And so I said to him, what you say to these other parents is you say, hey, my name's Luke. Just curious, if you were to sell your house, which realtor would you use? What would you recommend and why? And what he would do is he would get inside information on those real estate agents. And so he was able to, because there's lots of parents that are at this thing, he asked everybody that he met, and they would give him, it's not enough to just get a name. You want inside information, because in the next step, when you reach out, you've got to have some intel to be able to set that meeting up. Otherwise, they're going to be like, who are you? Why do I care? In any case, so that's what he did. So the first thing I would do if I moved to a new community is I would leverage any networks I had. And if I had a kid, obviously other parents of that kid. But if you don't have kids, I would join networking groups, BNIs. This is all basic. You're like, Scott, this is basic stuff. Yeah, but you got to ask that question. You can join these groups. And if they're like, oh, you're a mortgage broker, cool. I don't need a mortgage for the next 5 years or 7 years. You're not going to get any business. So what I would use those groups for is I would use them to find out who those people know, that the centers of influence that they already know, starting with real estate agents. But you can use the same tactic to get financial planners and accountants. And I won't get into that in this episode, but essentially I would do the same thing, but just change my asks slightly. And so one of the great parts about asking for advice as opposed to asking for business, people will often come to you for business as well. They'll be like, oh, actually, I didn't know you're a mortgage broker. Can you help me? Oh, yeah, I think I can. And so what you do is you'd go through in whatever networking group that you're in, whether it's from your kids, and you're going to ask them that question. If you were to list your house, who would you recommend and why? You get inside information. You got to get the inside information. The second thing you're going to do is when you reach out to those people. So let's say the realtor's name is Bob, and I'm Kevin. Let's say I'll pretend that I know Kevin. My kid's in tennis, and I see Kevin. Kevin tells me about Bob, and Bob's amazing because he goes above and beyond for his clients. And the last time he bought a place, he helped him with, there was some issue that came up and he solved it. Now, when I reach out to Bob and I say, hey, Bob, I was talking to Kevin, and he told me that you are the type of realtor who goes above and beyond in your business. In fact, he said that there was an issue with the stove that you were able to negotiate. You sound like a rock star. I got to be honest with you. I'm at the point in my business where I get to pick and choose who I work with, and you're somebody that I'd like to work with. And I'd like to set up a time to chat with you to show you how I can help you make more money the next year. Does Tuesday at 10 work, or Monday at 3. And the idea is I'm going to use, and when you reach out to somebody, you have inside information, them being rude to you is like them being rude to their client. And also it's pretty disarming, right? They're like, oh, yeah. If somebody calls me up and say, hey, Scott, I was talking to my friend, Joe, and Joe said that about you. I'm like, oh, I'm immediately going to be like, well, I want to hear what he has to say because he's already talking great things about me. So that's the first step. Then the next step is when you meet with them, you have to understand their pain points. And so one of the things that we do in our coaching programs, we show people we call it a pitch, because you don't go to a listing presentation. Realtors don't get listing presentations being like, hey, let me sell your house. That's $1 million. I'm going to make 50 grand and just like me. Like they're not dumb, right? But mortgage brokers, they meet with real estate agents, they meet with financial planners, meet with accountants, and they think being liked is enough. It's not enough. It can help. It doesn't hurt. That's for sure. But let me put it this way, you can work with somebody that you don't like. If you were going to court and you had to have somebody defend you, would you rather have a lawyer who is not that likable but really good at his job, or somebody who's likable but not good at their job? So at the end of the day, being likable is valuable and it helps, but it is not absolutely necessary in order to build a successful business. So being liked as a mortgage broker, I call it being stuck in the friend zone. You can be there forever and never make any money. And so you got to have a business conversation. So the business conversation, I'll give you one example. So we have a whole bunch of different value adds. So everybody says, so the way what I would frame this is when you do a value add, realtors have pain points. One of them is communication. They say, you know what, what's one of your pain points? Oh, you know what? No, everybody tells me the communication, but I can't get a hold of the person. And so everybody says, well, I got good communication, pick me. But you actually don't have, what does that mean? And so you need to I always like to put a name on things and create a product out of it. And so I would say something like, hey, we have a communication commitment. And there's 3 parts to this communication commitment. First is we have a commitment on leads. Any leads that come in, we get back to within 60 minutes. And we're going to give you an update. The second is on live files. So when live files happen, you're going to get an update from our office every single day till that thing's fully approved. And the third is on closings. We always communicate with the lawyer's office because the last thing we want to have happen, I don't know if you've had this happen, Mr. Realtor. If they've been doing it for any amount of time, they probably have. You've probably seen issues come up at the last minute. My office communicates with the real estate office, with the lawyer's office to make sure that thing goes smoothly so that we both look like rock stars. That's how our communication commitment works. So you see how I take something that's a pain point and I create a solution around it. I create a name around it, and I also create some standards. Domino's did this when they had in free, it's your pizzas delivered in 30 minutes are free. All pizza places since they started have all wanted to deliver fast, because fast meant that you are happy, which meant you're going to order more, which meant that they could also, the delivery guy can come back and deliver more pizza. Everybody said they had fast delivery. It was only Domino's who put a package around it. And so most of you guys listening to this, you do great things. You do not know how to package what you're doing. I'm just being honest with you. You know how to do these great things, but you don't know how to package it in a way that someone goes, that sounds like exactly what I want. And so in any case, so Luke does this. He gets in front of these real estate agents. He gets in front of an office manager. So one of the people he gets introduced to, he does his presentation, shows him that office manager's blown away. He's like, this is amazing. There's 21 realtors in my office. I'm going to send an email right now and introduce you to all of them. He ends up getting an in-house in that real estate office, and he had literally not been there a month. So he goes from not knowing a single person to getting in front of the people that were at his kid's tennis club. There wasn't that's actually a good market though when you think about it. People paying for tennis. It's not like they're probably, no offense, they're probably not buying mobile homes if they're putting their kid in a tennis club. And so this was a good client base that had good realtor base, was a great mortgage client. It was great for his mortgage business. That's how, if somebody dropped me in a town and said, Scott, hands tied behind your back, you're not allowed to do any social, not any content. That is exactly what I do. It's literally like to a T. Now, there is an improvement that I would make to this that I have since learned. So, and you might be, Scott, well, this was a couple years ago that we did this with Luke. We had an agent do this just last year. So we had a brand new agent came to us into our brokerage, our Rookie to Rockstar program. We taught her how to do this. She did such a good job that at one of the real estate offices, they're like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. She's like, they don't really know that I've only been doing this for not that long. And they went and they offered her an in-house in the real estate office. I said, hey, can you come in and be our in-house person? And they said, and she's like, oh, that's amazing. But here's the catch. You got to join this brokerage that I'm a part of because they want to make money. Whatever, that's fine. Here's the thing. So she came to us and said, hey, Scott, I feel terrible, but I got this opportunity. What should I do? And I'm like, take it. Well, at the end of the day, I'm like, look, we want to work with people. We want to be somebody's forever brokerage. But if somebody gets an opportunity like that, we're not going to say no. We're like, go. Because I also know in the back of my head that most people don't do in-houses for long, and she will be back. So our whole philosophy is love them on the way in, love them on the way out. And in any case, it still works. So what would I do different? The only difference that I would make with this is what I call the 3 thank you method. And the 3 thank you method will help you generate business from the person. So back to the Kevin who introduced you to Bob, the realtor, is that when I have that first meeting with Bob and it goes well, I'm going to say, hey, thanks, Kevin, for the introduction. Bob seems awesome. I'm going to be working with him. I really can't thank you enough for the introduction. That's it. It doesn't need to be anything but a text, whatever. When I get that first lead from Bob, right, is I'm going to reach back out to Kevin and say, hey, Kevin, you know what? I just wanted to give you a heads up. I just started getting leads from I got a referral from Bob. And again, thank you so much. Maybe this one you go from a text to a voice message or a video, and the person's like, oh, and you're thanking them again. And then when that file closes, I'm going to do a small thank you for them. It doesn't need to be anything big. It could be some coffee card or whatever. Hey, thanks so much. You know what? Close my first loan. So why would I do this? Is because every time I say thank you to that client, I'm reminding them what I do. That's the first thing, right? So it's like, I don't have to be like, I'm a mortgage broker, because that's annoying. But if I say thank you, we all love to refer people that work out. We love to refer somebody to a movie to go watch, and they come back and say the movie was awesome. We actually feel good when we tell somebody about a movie and they come back and tell us, oh my gosh, thank you for telling me about it. It was awesome. It's the same thing. You actually build warm feelings. If you're a rookie broker, this is even more important, because let's put this aside, this whole idea of new town, nobody knows you. If everybody knows you, like when I was a paramedic, everybody knew me as Scott the paramedic. And I go talk to my paramedic friends and say, who's your realtor? And then this realtor's been in the business for 10 years, right? So they've been in the business for 10 years. And I start working with them. Every time I go back and say thank you, they're like, oh my gosh, I thought Scott was a paramedic. Like he's working with him. He's got a referral. He's closed a mortgage. Your esteem in that person's eyes is going to go up. And so you end up reinforcing that relationship even more. So that's the difference. That's the only thing that I would change this whole thing, because it still works. It absolutely works. And then the next level, so I won't do it in this podcast, but the next level then is, how do I actually generate referrals from each client? So what you want, one of the best things that you can do, and my buddy Wally does this like an absolute master, is you need to generate outbound referrals from your inbound leads. So when you have a client, every client should be at least 4 outbound referrals to your other centers of influence. If you do that well, you create a business that's like literally recession proof. And, but I won't do that in this episode. Okay. So hopefully you found that useful. So as I said, first thing you're going to do is connect with people. You're going to have that conversation, get inside information on, centers of influence, real estate agents. You're going to make sure that when you meet that real estate agent, you actually don't just say, hey, like me, send me business. That's not going to be enough. You've actually got to show them how you solve their problems. And then the last part, step 4, is use the 3 thank yous in order to remind them what you do without having to say, this is what I do, and to reinforce your trust with that person. If you found this useful, hopefully you did. I got a favor to ask. Please go to Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, leave us a review. I'd really appreciate it. Share with a friend. Say, hey, check this guy out. He's out to lunch. Whatever you think. I'm actually grateful for the question, because the great part about this roadshow is they've kind of put me on the spot and said, what would you can't do it that way. I'm like, oh, dang. Also, if you want to listen to the episode where I say how to become the most famous mortgage broker in your community, click on this episode and it'll take you to that one. You can listen to that one, because I would personally, if I didn't have my hands tied, I would do this too. I would do both. And the last thing I'd say is, if you're new in the mortgage business, go to rookie2rockstar.ca, check that out. We've got a webinar there where we explain how we help rookies. If you're an experienced agent, we can even help you more, because that was my specialty for years, is going from 100 to 200 or 150 to 300. Reach out at ybricks.com. I'd love to chat. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you on the next episode.